Good morning, boss.
Good morning, Brett. There we are again.
Yes, I'm glad we can drink some coffee this morning. I'm still waking up, actually.
I have the same problem. Ah,
Well, we had some snow last week, 3 days of snow flurries, but it didn't accumulate.
no, the ground is still too warm. It takes a while.
But then it seems it's been raining just a little bit during November. Rainy season is extended into maybe near Christmas this year. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a muddy season. It looks like still. Yeah, the winter is moved from December to January, February, even March.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're warm inside, so we
Yes.
have power. Woohoo.
Well, so I only lose my power here today from 10 a.m. until 12, and the way it's been, sometimes they give you extra time. They have the city divided right now into six districts, electric districts, and they run them in rotation, depending sometimes two or four at a time, depending on how much generation power they have by their repairs of electric plants and transmission cables.
Yeah, and they try to make it that you have 4 hours of power and 2 hours no power. And those 4 hours are split into 2 hours where you will have power, they kind of guarantee it. And then 2 hours that, well, if there's enough, then you have power. So they say now if it gets below 0 Celsius, it's like underneath.
Under 32 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, then they think that it will go to 2 hours power, 4 hours not,
Mhm.
because yeah, everything takes more power if it's cold.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I can heat up my kitchen by turning on a burner and closing the door, but of course, at least this is an individual heater, so it uses electricity to circulate the hot water through radiators. I'm just glad there hasn't been any direct hits in my neighborhood for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Let's knock on wood, just to be. Every time I say this, something scary happens. So
We lost a house right on the corner of Pushkinskaya and Makarova, which would be about 2.5 blocks from me, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it blew the roof off and most of the windows. But they started repairing it, and it's almost done now. So they have to put new roofing material, some new wood too.
yeah, that was a shahed, right? If I
I'm
remember
not
correctly.
sure. I don't know. Maybe it was. I can't keep up with all the we get a lot of hits here, but they're spread out from across the city and also in the suburbs.
And the oblast
And I
was.
never know unless it's something. I mean, I'll remember. If it blows a hotel away or something, then I remember. But this wasn't the worst of all destruction.
No, well, as long as there's yeah, no victims, or then and we can fix houses and stuff, but
Hmm.
you cannot replace humans.
Yeah. The Of course, everybody now is trying to look at the strategy that the West is trying to decide on about how they're going to deal with Putin now that the team changes a little bit with Trump coming on board. And there's two or three different schools of thought. One is give Ukraine everything you can so that they can make as much destruction as possible until the time they negotiate and Trump is in charge. And there's others that are more political, blaming somebody and saying we shouldn't do that or we should do this. But Europe seems to be stepping up.
Well, they have to, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think if the things they're saying, like immediate peace, would be really bad because yeah, that's just temporary. It's
Well, even, I mean, an immediate peace would be, they hold on to whatever they want, and I'm not even sure. I think they want more than they've even already taken. I'm talking about the Russians, and it's ridiculous because after so many war crimes, what they've done to the people, they basically killed most of the males in the oblast that they took over, forcing them to die first. And they would do the same thing if the more of Ukraine they take, the more Ukrainians will die heading west to the borders in the Baltics and Poland, and maybe Romania. I don't think Russia has anything to lose right now. Their future is gone pretty much. It's just a matter of how many people they can take with them. And I think they're using that as their major bargaining chip. How long can we keep, uh, you know, ripping up your infrastructure and killing people?
yeah, even if they would stop now, they have all these people that are completely crazy because of the war. They know how to use arms. They're very frustrated, and if they would just go back into society with all their weapons and everything, it would not end well for Putin. Yeah, and there's also no signs that he's like he's um, going less hard in the war stuff. He's still children in the jet ski sats and at school, in the preschool and school. They're still learning all these things. They're being trained as drone pilots.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's no signal that he's willing to stop, and it looks like they're really preparing for like war the next coming oncoming 20 years because they have no way back. The only thing they make now is stuff for war and maybe bread.
Even though they say the sanctions haven't hurt them, they say one of the things is the West would have to lift sanctions. But I think even the contract for the gas line that they have that goes through Ukraine, that contract is up January 1st, and I don't know if it'll be continued. In some respects, that helps Russia. In some respects, it helps Europe. And in some respects, it even helps Ukraine. However, at this point, it's like maybe that Ukraine and Europe has to do without the gas after January 1st, especially if this is going to be a mild winter, and tell Russia that they're not going to buy anymore. Either that or take all the gas they can and then stiff him, which would be good for his economy. As far as I'm concerned, it would be good.
But yeah, but there's a lot of dodging the sanctions. Like Europe is now buying a lot of oil from India, and guess where they got it from on a discount? From Russia. So we're still like
What did they call that? A shadow fleet of tankers?
there's also a shadow fleet, but this is even separate from that. The shadow
Oh,
fleet is like tankers that sail, and they actually at sea they pump over the oil to a ship that is not Russian.
uh,
The Greeks are really good at this. They have no morals. They just want to make money, and yeah, and then it's like, oh, it's not Russian stuff anymore. So whoa, let's bring it to everybody.
in a simpler world, the port, I think they were hovering off some British port, 100 of these tankers. The Brits would just send a couple of warships out and just say, nobody leaves this area or we'll just sink you. And of course, the the Russian position is you want to cause an eco terror, an eco problem here, that's your problem. Well, but the British could commandeer the ships and then sell them to somebody like Venezuela for a nickel apiece. But with, of course, the stipulation that Venezuela doesn't turn around and start the same trade with Russia. Who knows? Either that or just pirate them and keep taking the money from Russia and then giving it back to Ukraine. Yeah. But they committed so many war crimes, I think they have to draw a line. I don't think Putin can surrender unless he wants him and all his KGB cronies to be tried in the courts in The Hague or someplace like that, and shot and imprisoned and publicly humiliated for a year or two. But the thing is if they can't if they can't quit and they can't allow anybody to come into their country, that means they're going to have to put up a wall, and he's going to have to hide behind the wall, which he's already been doing for 3 years, and he'll bring more people like Assad out of the countries that he's slowly losing his grip on, and then Europe can move in a little better. I think Europe has to provide security here. I think it's better if they have some troops here too. If not NATO, I thought they would get NATO at least to a certain line. Maybe not the line drawn between Ukraine and Russia, but it may be like just a vertical line arbitrarily set, and European troops could be up to there. But who knows? They'll have to make up their own rules as they go, and people will have to agree to it. But there will be plenty of incidents. I think they're going to replay the same thing they did with East and West Germany. Lots of crime and graft and spies, manipulation, basically stalling while their billionaires get a few more billions before they die. I think that's the whole program. I think that was always the program, personally.
Well, you say they're losing their grip. I think they completely lost Syria now. Assad is apparently fled to Moscow with his family. The rebels.
I saw him in Damascus on the television yesterday.
Assad?
All the rebels.
Yeah, in their palaces and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They couldn't do that. Supposedly, this is like 50 years of revolution for them. Of course, with the Russians and Iranians assisting against the Israelis and the Americans and other players like Turkey.
Yeah, it's a big game they're playing. But I think it's pretty good that they're out of. The Russians have to flee from Syria. It's like bad because then they can get this stuff out of Syria and then focus it on Ukraine. But the Russians were robbing Africa, and they were doing it via Syria. It was their stopover because their planes that they have difficulty with their big warplanes, in which they steal the gold from Africa and other stuff.
Okay. Steal the gold.
To go straight to Russia, so they always made a stopover in Syria. So they're now also going to lose their grip with Wagner in Africa, which is only good for African people, and maybe the money will also dry up a little bit and make the crisis in Russia bigger. Because in my eyes, the only way this is going to stop with Russia is if they completely collapse, and they have to look in the mirror.
I think that Russia will last as long as Putin does, and then when Putin basically tells all his cronies, look, we're old, you know, we're somewhere between death and suicide. Uh, we're going to have to give it all up pretty soon. So get your money where you want it, and then we say goodbye pretty soon. Then they let Russia collapse formally to the extent that they dissolve their military even, and they can become a neutral state.
Well, many neutral states
And get
because
another Gorbachev.
Russia is made out of so many different countries, and they try to erase their identities.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious if they still have their local traditions and languages, or they think they're now Russian after all these generations. Because otherwise, they can be their own country. And
Everything I see from Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, uh, so some of these other, I forgot the names of all of them. They seem to have their own identity, but of course, how much you can only do so much without Russia right on your neck, you know. But even the Armenians and the Azerbaijanis and the uh, uh, what Georgians and that, they've all been restless. But Russia basically just takes everything, and your own oligarchs, your own elites never get a chance, or unless they line up with the Russians. Well, that leaves very little for the people. Wherever Russia's at, the people are going to get very little. I mean, they treat a washing machine like it's gold,
and we're stealing them.
and
And toilets inside.
yes, yeah, it's a hard place. Of course, when your whole culture's like that, it's not so crazy. And of course, in the USA, if you had an outhouse, you'd be breaking the law in most housing areas, unless you had your own farm. And even then, you'd have the water people coming to disturb you and bother you about the aquifers or the ecosystem. You know, I don't know. We used to have problems even about septic tanks and stuff like that. Lots of rules, and no, you can no longer put in new septic tanks, and so this is all about control, money, uh, under the guise of eco control and aquifers. What the corporations do is 10 times worse, and they make money for it. But if you do 1/10 of that, it costs you, and you're in trouble.
Yeah, if you want to pollute, you have to bribe us. Otherwise, we're not allowed to pollute.
Talking about America, have you heard anybody from Europe react to the loss of one of our healthcare CEOs, United Healthcare?
It was not really in our news, but I saw YouTube news things about it that yeah, the guy with the bullets, and he wrote on the bullet casings all these things that these healthcare people would say to people that are in need of help.
Yes, delay, rejection, or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah,
I hate to say it. I mean, I'm on the side where this is pretty much justice. I mean, we basically have criminal capitalism. Congress writes the laws to suit each industry, and the controls and the profiteering and the running of cartels, saying it's not a monopoly. Okay, so it's a cartel, and they take turns extorting. Okay, so in this case, the worst offender in the cartel of six major corporations, they finally killed a CEO. Now, who they is, I have no clue. This could be an op to tell people, hey, it's time to steer away from abject thievery. And of course, the USA wants to save money because they're already raiding our pensions and our health care and education and transportation, just so that we can afford to be big dogs in the world situation, which we don't want to be anymore. So some of that may come back to the people. Although I'm not particularly uh, optimistic about it because we still complaining about China and Iran and North Korea. So that gives them license to stay into a kind of a martial law stance, even though it's not declared. And but it's basically criminal capitalism.
Yeah, it's it's like you have to pick which evil to support because China is also evil, very evil. It's much more evil, and and then you have Iran, which is also evil,
Yes.
and well, Russia is also evil. It's very obvious. But yeah, it's so
Some people think that these, where there's any coordination between these nations, east, west, communistic, autocratic, or whether, West capitalism, is overseen or orchestrated kind of like by a new world order that wants the banks in charge. To have one world currency, one world economy. If you We're all part of an economic neighborhood, so that we may not all have the same laws, but if you are a country and you're out of step, you get sanctioned, and so do your officials, and so do your corporations or locals or the mayor that's stealing everything he can out of the city funding. They get basically punished economically, which is not a bad way to do things. It's a little easier than going to war and having huge police departments, but they need control for that. And to get the control, I think they use these things like COVID and bank failures and multinational war. Well, not only wars, but other kinds of intrigues and problems, civil wars, to do that. I think they're always there trying to create a legitimate and binding debt. And a lot of conspiracy theorists uh, quote all the manipulations that are done during a war as being profitable for some of the players and setting up the next stages for the rest of the players to get their parts done. So I don't know. I talked to one guy here in town that thinks that this war between the West and Russia, a proxy war, is a proxy war in uh, Ukraine to weaken the German business people and the European business people.
let me quickly check what the air alarm is about, if you don't mind.
It's okay with me.
Uh, so I have kids, so let me quickly
Yeah.
check Telegram. Doesn't work. Well, they
We have so many alarms I don't check unless it was a near hit, but I understand. He has children here in the city, and his wife works at a different building downtown.
well, they don't say anything yet because I don't know if you noticed, but I hate to
No, go ahead.
stop your. But they told the American embassy told the Americans in Ukraine to be very careful now in response to the alarms because they think that they're gonna use this Orishnik on Kiev because that's what they threatened, and it's this thing that everybody was freaked out, which turned out to be a very old weapon, and but it's capable of uh, carrying atomic.
Yeah, a
Pieces.
warhead.
Yeah,
I'm getting coffee. I'll be right back.
yeah. If you have some. So I'm a bit more, and it's very hard to stop. You have to stop it while it's in midair before it splits up because it splits up,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, a MIRV, multi.
Yeah.
A multi.
that makes it very
explosive.
difficult, and it goes very high.
Yes.
So you also like on the radars, you see there's a blip because it goes above the radar thingy because you don't want to, and then well, it's like ballistics, but more annoying.
Yes. Well, I shouldn't wonder. I was listening to that. I think About their threats, I was wondering if this thing with the Zaporizhia power plant, the nuclear power plant, where they took that early and there was a standoff and lots of problems, if that might become the symbol of the nuclear problem, another Chernobyl, but they set it up so that Russia caused it. I don't know. That could satisfy their desire to do some really atrocious thing.
I I don't think, to be honest, it's a Shahed still flying around, so we're pretty safe.
Yeah,
Um,
I hope.
yeah, no. Um,
Well, if you want any cream or sugar,
Niet joken, joh. Ja, niet gaat, joh.
okay. Opa. I'm gonna turn so I can get it back into the picture frame. Okay.
So, do you ever go? I remember, when I was out of the country, things that I saw on the telegram, like air alarms and everything, they were much more scarier than if you were here. Because, but
Yeah.
like, I know that people abroad, outside of Ukraine, think that we run to a shelter every time there's an air alarm, or and in reality, life just goes on. It's there's so many. Well, we haven't had one for a while. We had one last night because of some Shaheds flew through our oblast or province to Odessa, because well, we're kind of between the Crimea and the rest of Ukraine. So rockets, everything flies over us. So we have many air alarms. Well, they might not be aiming for us.
Mhm.
They actually say that. Remember that when Odessa had a couple of days of no power and no water,
Yeah.
they say that our PPO, they shut down the rocket and it just landed on something
Oh.
very important.
Oh.
This happens. It's better to have no water than to be dead. So
Yeah. Well, with that much, I mean, a lot of people have taken damage from just shrapnel. Something's destroyed in the air, and a piece of it comes down on their house and cuts a
Right.
hole in the roof,
yeah,
or blows out a window. It's just different stray things.
yeah, and you read so many stories because I have kids. Of course, this always is in the back of my mind, and then they say, "Oh, we were saved because the shrapnel was stuck in." They were washing the bed linen and they were hanging in front of the window. But then you read that somebody survived because they were in the bathroom hiding.
Yeah.
And then you read another thing that the bathroom was hit and
Collapsed.
somebody that didn't hide survived. It's like
It's hard to guess. And for me, by the time I would get into a different place, I have gone in my own bathroom a few times, but more often than not, I just move away from the window or go to a corner, something like that, and just sit there. Because by the time I go and look for a shelter, it's over. You know, I couldn't even get out of the house very long before it would be, the sirens would stop. So,
yeah, and they use cluster munition like these cassettes. Then it's still better to be inside. If the rocket hits a house, then it's better to be outside.
yeah.
But so you don't know. You just yeah, it's
In this one area where I have an apartment on Korotna, there was a cluster bomb, and they killed two people there just standing on the street. But daytime, and one was at a bus stop, and one was walking along the sidewalk on the way to the corner bus stop, and but luckily, I mean, it could have been worse. There was only two people out there. half the people Half the people are gone from the city, really. And then on top of that, people don't go too many places anymore. They stay at home. Once in a while, if the weather's great, people will, they get cabin fever, so they go outside and get a little sunshine. And
yeah.
but
And if you have kids, it's very different than other parts of the world. If you have kids, and they don't go to school, you have a walk in the morning and a walk in the afternoon. And so because they need air, and everybody has a small little apartment here. So with a kid, they will destroy everything. They will drive you nuts. So you take them outside, and
And the schools constantly change to online, or they stop the online because there's a siren, so you should seek shelter.
yeah,
And
my
so does the teacher. Or even visiting the school sometimes. Some school, every school has a different arrangement, but go ahead and tell what your situation is.
yeah. So last year we came back because my son had to go to study, and we really missed Mykolaiv. We were in Greece, which is nice, but it's not Ukraine. And so we came back. So my son could go to school, but because of the safety issues, and a school has to have a certified shelter, um, they had it online, and online school is not very good for kids. It was also not easy for us. And this year, they some schools they do it offline because they have a good shelter, and most schools I think they're still online. Um, and my son has a little he calls it a bunker bag. It has a game in it. It has some snacks in it. So when they have to sit in the shelter for a couple of hours, sometimes it happens, then they can still entertain themselves, which I cannot imagine that it's easy for the teacher. And
I wouldn't think so.
yeah, so every time there is an air alarm, we get a message from the teacher that they're in the shelter. And we can also not pick them up when there's an air alarm. We have to wait until the air alarm is over, and they come out of the shelter, they pack up their bags and everything. My son loves the air alarms because then doesn't have to pay attention to mathematics or reading or they just sit in the shelter being naughty.
Well, at least he's trying to make the best of the situation.
Yeah, he's yeah, yeah, but it's like it's also like always. What do you tell them? My daughter is 3, so she doesn't really
Mhm.
understand what is going on. But my son, he's pretty smart, so you have to always be careful. He likes to know about the new weapons that we got from whom, and yeah, yeah, yeah. He's very easily scared, so yeah, it's it's a yeah. But they deserve a normal youth, I think. So without being scared all the time.
At least from my point of view, people have become quieter. They're not as fearful or panicked, but they're also different. It's almost like some kind of I don't know the word stolid, but kind of depressed and austere and very and quiet. Some topics they just don't even want to go over. It's pointless for them. They've been over them so many times, and they have different ideas about if this happens, then that. Like if Russian artillery should ever get close again, what do you do? Because that's a relentless uh, and this it's impossible to stop because that means they're within 30, 40 kilometers of you and they can just pound you day and night. But we don't think that's going to happen. Nobody here believes that they're going to get that close again.
Well, they seem to be going to try it to get to Kherson with boats, and then they can come closer. Indeed, the city changed after Kherson was half liberated till the
Yeah.
river, and yeah, we have many people from Kherson living here now
Yeah.
because it's kind of it's safer here, and Kherson is it's a hellhole now. 100 people with drones and everything, buses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really unsafe there. Well, they have shelling in it. Certain neighborhoods have been almost leveled, but the thing is I have no idea why, and I don't know what the Ukrainians can do with the drones to stop them or drive them back. I was surprised in a way that they couldn't drive them back another 10 kilometers or so to protect the city, but I guess the Russians have hung on that hard to the left side of the bank of the river, and so that they can't completely stop the artillery. But I have a friend that lives in Germany. She's telling me, she says, I don't have a job. My family isn't there now. My apartment, I don't know if it'll still be there when I go back. She says, I don't know what Ukraine will be able to do for us, if anything, if I would go back. She says, I don't know what I'm going to do if I stay here. And she's not very good with languages, so she's not learning German with any great proficiency. And a lot of people are like that. They just don't know what to do. And then, of course, you have some people, the women with children, it's even a much more complex question.
Yeah, I know people. We were in on Crete in Greece for 1.5 years, and we met some other Ukrainians, and we met a couple from Zaporizhia.
Oh,
Well, you can imagine you don't want to go home. I think they're in
no,
Turkey now.
you can't.
No, it's just too dangerous with a little kid. And we met a mother and son from Kharkiv, which last year it was safe, and now it's a shit show again because of the glide bombs and everything, and it just hit
Mm.
buildings where people live, and they just want to chase the people away. And yeah,
Well, some people think this will be over sometime between January and April. And when I say over, I don't mean the complete war or settlement of the land and all the sanctions. What I mean is like a peace that's set on Russian and Western and Ukrainian terms, like a frozen war. They use a lot that word in the media, but maybe similar to what we had in Korea or Germany or someplace like that, with some partitioning. And eventually, as Russia continues to cave in on itself, which I hope happens soon, um, they'll have to give up control, and it'll the areas will come back to Ukraine, and Ukraine can civilize them again and turn them into something besides a brick heap. And I heard something the Russians were bragging about how nice they've made Mariupol. One of the cities that was they fought over for 6 months and really destroyed a lot of people, which is kind of like one of the homes of the Azov battalion, who fought the Russians all along through their first incursions into Crimea and the Donbass and on the borders. And as if that they're going to be of any real value to the people of Ukraine. And I'm sure that they're doing that so that they can move in Russian nationals, but I don't think they want the Ukrainians to have anything. And I'm pretty sure that Ukrainians will be sent to farms and workplaces and controlled legally and politically, if not enslaved. And of course, eventually they'll use the Ukrainian youth as soldiers against the West. So I think that's the program should Russia get any kind of power
well,
again.
they're doing that already in all the in Kherson.
Oh,
They're getting all the men and making them go to the front line.
horrible.
In Mariupol, they already did this, and they Russify it. They did the same thing with the Krim. So they bring in a lot of people from Russia. They steal the houses
Hmm.
and just give them to Russians. So then later on they can say, "Oh, look, this is all Russia. You see, all the people that live here, they want to be in Russia." So it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
so and I don't see peace coming, to be honest.
No,
I
I don't think so.
I thought it when we fled first. We thought, oh, maybe in a couple of weeks it will be over because the international powers, they will do something because this is so horrible, Bucha and all this stuff, and nobody came. Then later on, there were more dramas, horrible things. Nobody came. So yeah, Ukraine has to rely on Ukraine, and I think in the future as well, we cannot trust other people, other countries to protect us or organizations. We have to do it ourselves because Russia will do it again. They still say that they want Odessa, they want Mykolaiv. So Ukraine will be a failed state because we don't have access to the Black
Right,
Sea anymore.
right.
So yeah, we just we need more weapons and completely destroy them. But yeah,
This
nobody has
fellow,
been.
this fellow that thinks that the USA and Russia are wanting to wake up Europe and move Europe from a butter to guns economy thinks that then, once Europe is awakened and turned back to a state capable of its own defense, then um, we will go together, Russia and the USA and Europe, to take on China, Korea, and anybody that's left out of the other axis of evil players. But he's a local guy, and he's a good guy, I think, and his thinking isn't without some base, but it's an interesting slant. Just what different opinions people have of the real players, how they're involved here, more than the script that you get to hear about in the news, anyway.
I don't agree with that take.
You don't think so?
No, it's very far fetched. Also, I understand. It's like people want religion to make things make sense.
That's
Death,
right. That's right.
birth, everything that happens to you that has to make sense. So many people they think no, Russia cannot be so bad. There must be some horrible person that is controlling all this.
Yeah,
Oh, it must be.
that's Putin.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, when I was in Greece, people would blame NATO. It's like, what are you talking
Oh
about?
yes, you encroached and you didn't keep your promises to leave
It's
Europe as bait.
bullshit. We never made those promises. Even Gorbachev
No,
said we never made those promises.
no It was a memorandum, and it came and went, and Russia broke it all the time. Every agreement, everything that they signed in Budapest and Minsk and everything. They got the nuclear weapons. They did nothing though to help Ukraine. They tried to Russify them again after 6 or 7 times in the last 300 years, and it's tiresome. They've been an imperial state and they have that mindset. It's not so dissimilar from US or Britain or any of the old imperial states at some point. But we don't, how much we indulge that or get away with it is another thing. Anyway, it's not good for the people that get exploited, certainly the common people. So, um, the prices have been going up in the stores. It's ridiculous. I don't know how the Ukrainians can buy food nowadays. I mean, it's really bad compared to a year
Yeah, I
or
know.
3 or 7 years ago. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the prices are going nuts. Yeah, we have to. We have a family, so we have to budgetize as well because, well, first we had St. Nicholas, Then we'll have Christmas, and then New Year's Eve. Well, we will not be having any fireworks, I hope, because
Oh yes, right.
no, you know what? Uh, um, I had one night where shaheds were flying above Mykolaiv, above the city, and I live outside of the city, still in the city, but and so I was walking through my living room, and I looked outside. I saw, wow, fireworks! I really, my stupid
That
mind
was
thought
fireworks.
fireworks, and then I thought fireworks, and then I understood
Oh, wow.
they're shooting shaheds.
Yes.
But yeah, but I'm so used to, like in the Netherlands, New Year's Eve. It's like they shoot so much fireworks. It looks like World War III. It's like completely crazy. Now they're now toning it back a little bit, but yeah,
They said that the Russians are conducting mass surveillance of Kherson by small drones. It's like mosquito clouds are coming over the river and looking at everything, and maybe just an op to see how much they can observe and you know a further step for the wartime technology. But I just heard that a day or two ago too. That the people in Kherson say they're everywhere, coming around your windows and your doors and everything.
yeah. It's my big fear is that it will happen too. And I was actually thinking of, well, I cannot legally own a shotgun here. I thought maybe if I get like this
Yeah.
phonetic gun, maybe
Oh yes,
I
and
make a chance.
yeah,
Or catapult. But yeah, yeah, it's a very scary idea. And now they have jammable drones
yes,
with a little cord behind them,
yeah.
fiber optics, like 20 kilometers of
Uh,
wire, and then you cannot stop them. You cannot jam them. So the only thing you can do is shoot them down.
it actually carries a probably silicon carbon wire, or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, fiber optics, which it can be there. It's just light
That you
signals.
mean like on a string, like a
Yeah,
spool?
yeah.
That must be like it must be extremely small then.
True, and it's all from China. China developed
Uh,
this, and it is very difficult for the guys in the front because you have drone jammers on your car and everything. You have drone detectors to see if there's a drone coming because it's all via the airwaves, and these things you cannot detect them. You cannot stop them.
yeah.
So, but we were also making them now. But yeah, well, the thing is, everything is coming from China, and yeah, and China rather sells it to Russia than to
Well, they'll be China will be selling that worldwide because if they can do it cheaper and get that into the hands of both police and criminals and armies, there's going to be a huge market for this. This is basically new but inexpensive technology, which is that's like candy, to criminals and police. So
yeah, and in England they have all these American bases. They've been observed by drones, and they cannot do anything to stop the drones.
yeah, that's bad. I've heard about that too in the USA. They're even having some kinds of drone surveillance, and they didn't go into the details. Just that they don't know what to do about it. You know.
It's like they think they're watching a movie, like a science fiction show, when they look at the war in Ukraine. I mean, and they somehow their brain does not compute that all this stuff that is flying around here can also fly around there, and
Yes.
you cannot just sit there in and think like, well, we don't need any anti-drone stuff. We don't need this for every airfield or important gas point, or all these. They're not. They, they're just ignorant. They think that nothing will happen, and Russia will do all these little things just small enough So you cannot point the finger at them because they're gonna hire people from Eastern Germany. That's everybody here speaks Russian because they had to
Yeah,
in the former Soviet states. So and there are many criminals, and they will just have them do certain things, and it
sure.
will be not. You cannot say, well, that was Russia, but
They may not even know who paid them.
yeah,
Yeah,
in England,
they've already been doing that,
yeah.
and we always have. Almost all sides use that, untraceable stuff that people can do for you, and then it helps your cause evil or for good.
Yeah, and all the security systems are still on the mindset that they have to uh, keep an eye on ISIS and look out for Arabs with beards. But
Yeah,
it's not the Arab with beard anymore. It's a white guy.
yeah. They can be anybody looking for a job, which worldwide is a lot of people, or at least a decent income. Which brings me to the point of view that for people that are conspiracy theorists, these events that we've had recently, the worldwide orchestrated events,
You
where
think
there's
they're
such a good response, and the response always helps the billionaires, and it always controls the common man, is leading to a almost kind of like a dramatic crescendo that the world needs to be controlled again by this one power, supposedly benevolent to save us from wars, etc. And we don't know who sits on those councils or who's the real strategy, or if it's not partially run by AI already. Yeah, I know I'm going very far afield with this, but if they did not try to think about that now, even 20 years ago, they would have been remiss as security planners or defensive strategists. So I'll just stop with that. That's a different video.
I still think that this conspiracy stuff is a new religion. You're looking for answers because the stuff doesn't make sense, and then you think, oh, there must be one big person pulling all the strings. People
Well,
are too incompetent, to be
I
honest.
don't think it's one person. I think it's like in the herd, there are a few people that understand that they're doing something to help something. And that is like a pyramid. I mean, all organizations have that, where the control at the top, it has to be fairly well hidden because this joke about having people like these CEOs out in public and they're multi billionaires and nobody bothers them, impossible.
Well, they have
Yeah, look,
teams.
we just had an example of a CEO being murdered outside of a New York hotel. Well, if you think Warren Buffett sits out on his front porch and plays the banjo and nobody ever bothers him, or that he'll never be bothered because his persona on the news is he's just a nice old guy that is a billionaire. Okay, that's great, but it doesn't work that way. There's plenty of people would go and take him and say, look, if you don't make deposits and do these certain things, I'll kill you. And even if I have to die here too, even if it's a suicide for me. Because there's plenty of people like this. Some are crazy, some are desperate, some believe they are a victim of injustice, and a lot of people would do that without problem.
And then you also have comprimat, as they say.
Compliments?
Comprimat. Many politicians went to Moscow,
Oh,
stayed in hotels. Maybe they had some visitors.
oh,
Maybe there were some cameras,
oh yes,
stuff
blackmail.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Oh, they're all control. You can't have somebody in the public that's not controlled by both blackmail and threat. In fact, it's pretty well known that you offer them graft and they have to take it. So the record shows that they're a criminal. Now, they could say, well, I didn't want that $1 million, but they forced me to take it. Okay, well, that sounds okay. Maybe it's true. But it takes a lot of the public attention away from, oh, the guy's rich. He's doing it because of greed, just like they do say the same thing about Congress people. I don't believe they get that kind of incompetence and settings for destructive behavior when it's without plan and controls. And I think the controls have to be both carrot and stick. And it probably pays pretty good because I don't see a lot of duress from a lot of the senior people. But I mean, Bernie Sanders' wife was picked up and he got phone calls. John McCain's face was messed up. Uh, Bernie had a big bruise on his face, and Harry Reid was working out in the gym, and the gym apparatus came across and hit him in the face and almost broke his facial bones. So that all happened in I think, in the same year. And I don't think that's all coincidence. Now, you could say, oh, you're just paranoid. Yes, I'm paranoid. I admit it. But I'm not afraid to check myself and correct myself. But that isn't going to keep me from expecting billionaires to keep getting richer. Because that's what I see happening without any failure. Everything else can have problems, but it's all set on for-profit amassing of capital worldwide. And again, I'll stop my tirade again there.
It's okay. I had time to take a cookie. They're very tasty.
Did you try the chocolate one or the cherry
No,
filled
no,
one?
the cherry-filled one.
Yeah.
They, if you visit Ukraine, you have to eat the candy and the cookies. They're very
Yeah, they're
tasty.
good.
They're not very good if you want to live keto.
If what?
If you
Oh,
want to-
keto diet. No, yeah. I'm on kind of a modified keto diet. One, I'm not breaking the rules, but
I'm a sucker for sugar.
yeah. Well, if I break the rules, that's the kind of stuff I like to eat. Is the stuff that I absolutely can't have when I'm on a diet. So, what, should we take a break? Any last parting ideas, or I turn it over to him while his mouth's full. Just kidding.
You're cookie shaming me.
Cookie shaming. That'll probably go viral. I
I
was
thought
thoroughly
this time
cookie
I'm not
shaming.
wearing a mic, so I can kind of sneakily. I think, oh, Brad will tell us about the big conspiracies and these
I'm
evil
a reckless
masterminds.
cookie shamer.
I can have another cookie. But no, I think Ukrainian people are amazing. So I think Ukraine will find a way
Yeah,
to victory.
they
It's-
are very resourceful and inventive. I've seen guys do unbelievable stuff with only one or two kinds of tools, limited material. Really, really sharp people, really. And the culture's a good culture, basically. They're set on being good to one another.
Yeah, it's
I hope
amazing.
it
They're
lasts.
so kind.
Yes.
I mean, I am obviously not a Ukrainian. They see, they see it from a mile away. But everybody's very nice and kind to me.
Yes.
It's amazing. If I struggle with the language, they try to help me. There are not many people here that speak English, but the kids, they are all learning English from the first class. It's amazing. So now when I walk in my area, everybody knows I think that I heard people say that I'm from Italy. I've heard it's probably because of my temper. I heard people say that I'm from Germany, the UK, American. I've heard also quite often, and so all the boys and girls, they say hi, hello, how are you, and then you have to ask them back to
Yes.
challenge them, and then they say, how are you? I'm great, and then I'm like, and then they say, I am Ivan. But so I tried to explain it to him. But it's very funny. Yeah, even some parents are now saying hi to me. because it's like a running joke in my area that I'm the guy that everybody says hi to or hello. Everybody's trying to English with me.
Like the taxi driver saying to me, "Have a good day." You know, like that. It reminds me of the USA 30, 40 years ago.
So now they have an air alarm sound again, and if it doesn't go, if it's like straight, it doesn't go down, and then it's all clear.
Ah,
They have two signals. This doesn't sound like all clear, to be honest. No, it's not.
okay. I'm gonna say goodbye for now.
Yeah.
I think I got enough gigabytes here to destroy YouTube.